And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you? Now you're muted.
Yeah, I'm having issues with my mouse today. I'm doing good, minus my mouse being a piece of junk. It occurred to me today, it hasn't really set in that the next playoff game's tomorrow. I don't know why. Today it kind of occurred to me. I'm like, why does it not feel like there's a game tomorrow?
Because it's
this came up quick.
Because it's
right
Thursday, and we shouldn't be playing a stupid game on a Thursday.
Why are you hating on the game just because it's on a Thursday?
Because it's not like you're changing everything because of the NFL, and I guess that I get it. But play both of them tomorrow then. I mean, I get you want to have both of them in prime time. But
Yeah.
I mean, gracious.
Well, the other thing I'd throw back at you, actually, because you can't do both of them on Friday. Because then they would both be like, you can't have a midday Friday
to
game.
the NFL. Even though they got Indiana, Alabama got 29 million views. 29 million concurrent viewers. And that's one of the biggest college football games, playoff games, not a national title ever. Well,
it was the only thing on at the time. If you got an NFL game, it's pulling people away.
I guess. I'm going to watch college football, so I guess that I'm just biased to watching college football over the NFL. But to your point, we do have a college football game, playoff game tomorrow. We will discuss both of them. We will make our picks more and a little bit more of an elaborate pick from what we've been doing throughout the regular season. We'll be picking Indiana versus Oregon. We'll be picking Ole Miss versus Miami. Joe and I will get to that in just a moment. But, Joe, we got to start out with this, as we talked about it last night, but we were unable to talk about it live. But DeMond Williams, this whole situation continues to make waves. What are your thoughts on what we've learned throughout the day, as we did discuss last night, but what have we learned about DeMond Williams in the current situation?
Yeah, we talked about the fit, and we didn't talk about the turmoil and the drama that's surrounding this. And one of the things that I've kind of noticed, there's a lot of attention on this for the obvious reason that, like, this is a big name player. This is a quarterback. And a lot of people around college football are regarding this as a transformational situation. Depending on the outcome that occurs here, it could affect the future of the sport and how schools are able to hold players accountable for the contracts that they sign. One of the things of note, per the NCAA bylaws, schools must enter in a player into the transfer portal if they deliver that they have an intention and would like to enter the transfer portal. Williams has not filed any paperwork yet outside of him making the announcement. So that kind of slows down this process. So we think. Mm-hmm. Right. They might not be telling us the full thing here. Dan Wetzel made a really good point on this on Twitter. And I think that it really puts into perspective the complication of the matter. I also read Pete Thamel's article where he was getting anonymous comments from athletic directors who, of course, are complaining about the situation.
Of course they are.
They're talking as if, hey, this is an employee who is not abiding by his contract. Dan Wetzel pointed out, it's kind of hard to treat a kid like an employee when you did all this fighting to make sure that these kids were not employees. Mm-hmm. It is not like people are considering it. Yeah, LSU, if they end up getting him, is going to be considered to be the bad guy in this situation for tampering, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada.
But they're not the only ones.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Who gives a shit? It's the nature of how the sport works at the current moment. Where this gets messy is with the legal matter of trying to treat the kid like an employee. He hasn't received a payment. He hasn't stepped on the field. If this is a marketing deal, an NIL marketing deal, and he hasn't received money, why is there this belief that you can hold him accountable at this current moment?
Well, and let me tell you what else you can't hold him accountable for. Based off of attorneys that I talked to today, they could be wrong, but they're attorneys, I'm not, okay? How can you hold someone to a deal when the law would tell you that it's not enforceable through the contract? Anyone can sign a contract, meaning there are things in the contract that gives Washington provision to where they don't have to, number one, allow him in the transfer portal. Okay, well, it violates NCAA rules, so that contract is not void, but it breaks bylaws. That's number one. Number two, you bring up the NIL payment and that he can't get NIL payments anywhere else. You can't do that. It's against the law. It's literally against the law. You can't do that. So you can have these bylaws, but this goes to court, Joe. You can't, a judge can't rule on that in Washington's favor, telling somebody that they can't make money somewhere else. And you know what you can't do? You can't tell a kid to unenroll and not enroll somewhere else in an institution in school. The reason that you didn't want to make them employees because they're student athletes. Well, Joe, you and I are 1099 employees. We own our own businesses. We run our own businesses. They can't tell us what to do. Newsflash, Peter Pan. They can't tell us what to do. There's a difference between being a W-2 employee and a private contractor. Every college football player is a private contractor. But here's another thing that I want to point out that no one has really brought up to some extent. I know the situations are different with this, but do you remember the moment when the Joker went and met with Harvey Dent in the hospital and he was like, little mayor gets shot and it's all chaos, but 3 police officers die and no one bats an eye? So you mean to tell me that Penn State and Auburn can collectively upend Iowa State and South Florida and no one really says anything, but one quarterback goes into the portal or announces that he wants to go in the portal for more money, let's just be honest, and potentially a better situation, and it's a complete uproar? I mean, how are you justifying the tampering that went on with Matt Campbell? How are you justifying that? Please tell me how you mean to tell me that when Matt Campbell took the job to be at Penn State, that he didn't selectively call players and ask them to come to Penn State? You're going to try to convince me of that? Like, you can't convince me. What tampering? By the way, LSU is the bad guy in this situation right now. Miami and Oregon have been the teams that have also been trying to that have been tampering with him, and they've also been talking to him to go to their schools. One of those teams is in the Big Ten. So what now? You're trying to make Lane Kiffin the bad guy because it's easy to make Lane Kiffin the bad guy. By the way, single-handedly, Lane Kiffin's changing college football as we know it. The calendar is getting changed, and there's conversations about the calendar because of what happened with Lane Kiffin. This tampering rule could get changed and be enforced, and how things go down because of Lane Kiffin, if that's what you're saying. So you mean to tell me that Lane Kiffin is single-handedly changing college football right now, and he did it in 3 weeks, and it took you 5 years to do it? So actions by Lane Kiffin, because you don't like the man, is changing the actions of college football? How about that? You can't cry tampering for a quarterback when 20 players from Iowa State picks up and then goes to Penn State. You can't do that. You can't pick and choose what you want to get mad at. So now you're going to have to justify all of this. And newsflash, Xavier Lucas, how did that go down? How did it go down? Right. Court's still waiting to rule on it, but Joe, here's the problem. They don't know how to rule on it. They have no idea how to rule on it. And it's why it's taken them so long. So when you go into all of this, is it a bad situation for Washington? But it's also, yes, but it's also a situation of why the calendar's got to change. You're making a kid in Damon Williams figure out the best decision for him in less than 10 days. You're making Lane Kiffin and other coaches have 10 days to figure out everything that's going on with their new schools. And that is why Alex Golish and Matt Campbell are taking all of their former team players to their current team because they got a lot of holes to fill. So a lot of this I think, revolves around the calendar, but Oregon's tampering with him. Joe, I'm not guessing on that. I know for a fact that Miami is very, very desperate and very close to being closer to 8 figures and what they will pay him than 7 figures. What do you think? What do you think's going on? You didn't do anything to Miami, but now that LSU's involved, you want to do something about it? So when we talk about this situation and Ross Dellinger, which, by the way, I'm just going to say this. Ross Dellinger's vendetta on LSU is very noticeable. How did you get that MMR contract? How did you post it? For a player they didn't even hit. So I'm just going to say this. When you do dirty shit, you better be careful. I warned people about Frank Wilson and about the tampering that Ole Miss did, and it hit. I'm just going to tell you now, Joe, they're not reporting on Oregon. They're not reporting on Miami. But this little phone right here, screenshots never die.
The other thing with this, Blake, I don't know, follow up to that. I was looking for
after one school.
Yeah.
I get it.
Okay.
High school,
Well, okay, because it's naturally it's quite simple for everybody knows the school that needs a quarterback right now and knows the quarterback that would fit the system. We talked about it last night, how it was pretty obvious. It also, the rumor completely flew overnight. It was everywhere that everybody basically knew that LSU was the team that was the primary one that wanted DeMond Williams. There might be other teams interested, but it's easy to take shots at LSU and Lane Kiffin at the current moment with everything that's happened. It's just naturally very easy. They're the villains of the sport. They're going to be the villains of the sport for the next few years, probably while Lane Kiffin's there. It's just what's going to happen. I was trying to look up a tweet that I recalled reading from Darren Heitner, which is not directly related to this, but it's quite similar. He's a lawyer who specializes in NIL contracts.
Yeah, I
the
sent
tweet
him,
on.
Go ahead. He's really good at what he does.
The tweet that he had on Christmas just reviewed language that says if a Temple athlete enters the transfer portal before the NIL deal expires, they owe 100% of all remaining payments as liquidated damages. That means paying back money they never received. That provision should be illegal. So this isn't the same situation. We don't know the details of the Washington contract. It does include in the contract that there's a buyout to lead the deal that's at the sole discretion of Washington. So they can determine what that buyout is in order to kind of let this thing go away. Which is
also illegal.
But the point of what he's bringing up here, though, I think aligns in the sense that if he hasn't been paid, there is no way to hold him accountable for trying to get out of it and trying to leave.
Yeah, and
as you said, he's an independent contractor. He is a not an employee. He is not a full-time employee. You can't request exclusivity from somebody who is not a full-time employee.
You can't even do that for an employee. Well, hold on. You can't even do that for an employee.
Well, no, you can, because there's a lot of high-paying jobs that have like non-competes where you can't buy, but they have non-competes where like you can't sign with certain companies. You can't disclose information from where you were. Like there's allowances there for full-time employees.
But hold on. How many coaches left their programs this year?
I don't know if this directly relates in the circumstance. I don't think it directly. It doesn't. It does. Let me tell you, they didn't sign extensions and then expect not to pay buyouts. If Eli Drinkwitz left to go to Michigan, he would have had to pay. Michigan would have had to pay his buyout.
And within 9 months, he was gone.
But that's not like a week later, a couple weeks later.
Okay, what's the difference?
It's not the same. It's not the.
What's the difference?
The timing's the difference.
Okay, but the problem of it is you have a college that has an employee when another school comes and buys out his contract and he goes somewhere else.
Well, this is the main point with this is that if the contract includes that there's a buyout based on their discretion, you and I spoke last night before we recorded, and you kind of said along the lines of, whatever the buyout is, I'm sure that that whoever's willing to make this whole commotion happen is probably willing to pay that buyout.
So I think that $30,000 is what I've been told of a potential buyout.
I think that what with the emphasis from a lot of these people reporting on the matter, clearly getting information and talking to people at Washington, with they would absolutely pursue legal action, all of those things. I think it's a very extreme way of framing this. I think it's just merely a way of saying, if we don't get our buyout money, we're going to cause an even bigger mess. You better adhere to what we're asking for.
We already had this one in court. It's called Madden Iamaleava, and he had to pay $200,000 back, and he did. And the school helped
that's the point here with this. There is technically a precedent set that if you try to leave early on and you receive some sort of, it just all kind of comes down to how this is going to get perceived. I bet there probably will be legal action, and I probably would bet that DeMond Williams will be suited up in a different team's uniform. I would be. I know that there's these statements out there. I think NACO's put out there that, Washington, it was something along the lines of like, Washington expects DeMond Williams to be their team starting quarterback. That's just a BS statement that Washington's putting out there to cover their to cover their butt in the legal process, so that they can be like, we expected him to be there. We would have taken him back, so that the opposing party can't claim you wouldn't have taken him because he effed you over. But the truth of the matter is, why would Jedd Fisch, why would that team want to take him back after he has gone to extreme lengths to get away from Washington?
Well, and they're also coming at it from the angle and leaking that they want to get paid for damages. What damages? They're saying their damages are that there's a situation where they didn't have adequate time to go get one of these quarterbacks. Like who? You weren't getting Sorensby. Sam Levitt's not committed. Dylan Raiola and DJ Lagway are still out there. So now what?
Right. It's not like
damages.
It's not like this had at the very last day of the portal.
There's
to sue for damages is stupid.
Or 9 days that they're left in the portal. You have enough time to go get somebody. I mean, look, they're hosting Bo Prabula and Dylan Raiola. I mean, good for you. Good for you. But let me just say this. Did Jedd Fisch tamper with players at Arizona that wind up going to Washington?
I got to be honest with you. I'm kind of completely over anyone. I have actually ignored and disregarded everyone's yelling about tampering. I don't think tampering means shit. I really don't. I really don't think it matters because it's unenforceable.
But here's the problem with that. You can't cry wolf and cry tampering, and then when it happens to you, get mad about it.
That's why I don't pay attention to it. That's why I literally stop listening to people who comment about it.
You can't be a hypocrite. Because I'm about to go in about an hour. I'm going all up in him. Pause. But you can't. You brought 3 players over. Noah Fafita was somebody you tried to get. It was very well known. Right. Very well known. So I mean, where did McMillan? Where did the big corner go to?
Well, Takario Davis didn't come until later, but it's to your point.
But he still tampered later.
Right. But again, I keep coming back to all of this. I don't want to hear anyone bring up tampering because it is literally at the current moment unenforceable.
They're suing a school over it. Newsflash. They're suing a school for it. And LSU's getting sued by Ole Miss for tampering because get this, you ready? Because their coaches, their current employees were on campus talking to players. Can you imagine that? Remember the coaches that they brought back into their building to coach? They're hitting him with tampering. Oh, good Lord. Never a dull moment. All right, let's get to it here. Everyone do us a favor by hitting a like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Every Ruffino and Joe show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Join Joe and I in betting the playoff games tomorrow with the good partners over at FanDuel. If you have Apple and or Android phones, you can go over there and place those bets today. If you're in the great state of Missouri, you can place those bets now there. FanDuel is active and live there as well. For any thoughts, questions, and concerns, go over to FanDuel.com/RG for more details. And we're also brought to you by our good friends over at Ziprecruiter.
Yes, if you are looking to hit the ground running at the start of the year and you want to reach your business goals, there is no better place to go if you're hiring and you're looking to expand than Ziprecruiter. It has the perfect resources that you're looking for in order to be able to find that next hire. Right now, you can go and try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. With ZipRecruiter's advanced resume database, you can instantly unlock top candidates' contact information and all other pieces of info that you need. Let ZipRecruiter help you find the best people for all of your roles. 4 out of 5 employees who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the very first day. See for yourself. Just go to ziprecruiter.com/audio. Audio, again, that's ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
By the way, I have a very strong suspicion over the next couple of days, you and I are going to have a segment about Texas, but I'm just going to leave that alone.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Going to leave that alone. Nevertheless, here we go. Joe, speaking of LSU, what are your thoughts on the LSU portal haul that they have brought in through Lane Kiffin in his, I say first offseason, but Joey hadn't been there a month. But what are your thoughts on the players that LSU was able to grab over the last couple of days?
Yeah, the one that really, really caught my attention was them getting Tre Wilson from Florida. Now, I get it. Tre Wilson has been quite banged up. He has not played a ton of football over the last 2 years. But I can tell you this much. He was very highly regarded in NFL circles. He was a guy that a lot of people thought, man, this kid's got potential. He could be a first-round pick in the 2026 NFL draft. He ended up, again, suffering another injury, ending the year early. Blake, I tweeted this out, and I mean this like wholeheartedly. This receiver room that they've put together is tremendous. Jackson Harris and Trey Brown, solid players. They're solid guys to add in the mix and to have. But the two that I think take this group over the top are getting Wilson and getting Jace Brown. Brown, it was a guy who every time I watched a Kansas State game, I was like, man, that kid is going to – J.C. Brown, sorry. That kid is going to be a player who's going to be a riser when he declares for the NFL draft. That dude is explosive with the ball in his hands. He is a big, big-time playmaker. Now, I got to see what they do at some of these other positions. We got to find out who's the quarterback that they're going to go and get and bring in. If it is Devon Williams, that would be huge. If it is somebody else a little bit down the line, there's still some pretty good options on the table. But at the current moment, this feels like exactly like the type of Lane Kiffin class that he would put together that would set up a team for success, especially in year one. This is a really, really good group of kids that they put together.
I think the biggest sleeper, everyone looks at LSU's portal haul right now and says, this receiver, Eugene Wilson, which Lane retweeted our video today about it. He is very explosive. He is very good. I've talked a lot about J.C. Brown. I've talked a lot about Jackson Harris, who Joe, Oregon, USC, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, all were trying to get in the mix on, and LSU got him day one and got him to sign day one. I think that is a very big deal as well. Michigan was supposed to get in the mix and did not. I got to be blunt with you. There's two guys. I think Eugene Wilson when healthy is a very big playmaker, but I think this Ty Benefield kid out of Boise State can flat out play. Joe, I think that Ty Benefield is the last infinity stone for LSU secondary, who most of them return. You're losing a first-team All-American in Mansour DeLeone. You're losing a first-team All-American in A.J. Halsey. But you return to Sean Spears, who you've developed from within, who had multiple interceptions and a pick six versus Florida, had a massive coming out party down the stretch for LSU. P.J. Woodland was one of the best corners in the SEC, and you have DJ Pickett, who was the number one corner in the country last year, comes in as a true freshman and does a lot of really good stuff. I think he's going to play that star role that Harold Perkins played in, and I think that they have really hit at secondary. Hot take. I think LSU, again, has the best secondary in the SEC going into next season, especially with Ty Benefield. 107 tackles last season, 8.5 tackles for loss, and 2 pairs of interceptions. He is a game changer there, in my opinion. I think they have an elite secondary coming into the season, and they can play a lot of man coverage and get after the passer. I think another thing here, too, with LSU that needs to be very well noticed. Number one, they got to go get offensive linemen. Must go get offensive linemen. Quarterback, we all know. We just got done talking about it. So for this segment, I'm not going to talk about it. Damon Williams, Sam Levitt, Sorsby committed and signed with Texas Tech. We all kind of pretty much know how that's going on there. However, Joe, they're vastly in the mix here for Chaz Coleman, who was a top 5 player in the country last season, went to Penn State. He was at Ohio State. Looks like that he left Ohio State, and I don't want to say they lowballed him, but feels like it could be there. He's going to potentially take a trip to South Carolina, but it seems like LSU might be getting a visit back from him with his family. It looks like LSU feels that they're in a certain position for him there. Quay Rashall, however you say it, is another guy.
I think it's Quad Russaw.
Quad Russaw that they're after, and Jordan Ross is also on campus.
Well, what about, are they going to get in the mix for Damon Wilson? Because that to me is a pretty big domino in this class.
Here's what I've heard for Damon Wilson. Number one, he's not technically in the portal yet, so not a lot's flying out there. He planned to enter the portal. I do think he's using Missouri for leverage. I do think he's utilizing this for leverage. Let's just wait and see there. Do I think that LSU would get involved there with the Blake Baker connection and how that went down and then Blake Baker leaves, all that? Yes. Let's hold off on that for just a moment because he's not technically in the portal. He's planning to enter the portal, but he's not technically in it yet. Would they get involved there? Yes. Do I think that they're going all in on Chaz Coleman also? Yes. But they're not waiting on Damon Wilson. They're not waiting there. They're not going to do it. So we'll see what happens on that one, but they're really trying to clean up along the defensive line of scrimmage. They got to go get a quarterbacks, plural. They got to go get some offensive linemen, but they've done a really good job at receiver and at tight end. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, ultimately, the biggest thing that catches my attention with this is it's the receivers. And you highlighted some of the other things that they need to address. And by the way, I got to throw this up on the screen. Why talk all LSU? This is an AYS of the show, but it's getting a little bit much. I was the one who wanted to talk about this. This wasn't Blake. I determined the topics at the beginning of the show. I texted Blake as soon as Tre Wilson committed, and I said, "Hey, we got to talk about this. This is a huge get. This is a really underrated get." Yeah,
Ruffino and Joe, just so everybody knows.
For this reason, if we ever talk LSU, it's because I request that I want to talk about LSU. This is huge. Yes. And here's the thing: we already talked about the Indiana class. When we're going through the transfer portal stuff, we're going to touch on classes as they come along. Whenever there's a big get. Getting Tre Wilson is a huge, huge get, and also having J.C. Brown is also a huge, huge get.
We literally
yesterday, right? Well, we've talked about other classes. We're not going to talk about each individual move when it happens. We're going to talk about whenever there's a big update that allows us to talk about a full class. We will. Texas A&M is a team that I want to talk about soon because them getting Ento Sacco is a really big deal. But Blake, I said this to you yesterday.
By the way.
I know. Sacco? Oh, the kid Sacca is his name.
Sacca. That's even better. I'm about to Sacca.
I said this to you. This is the best receiver room that Lane Kiffin's had as a head coach, without a doubt. And I know that this year's group has been really, really good with dribbling and with Wallace. Like, it's been really, really good. Brown and Wilson could both be top 50 picks next year. It's absolutely plausible for that to end up happening.
Well, and again, you know why we're talking about LSU? Because they're literally on top of the sport in reference to coverage. You want us not to talk about Damon Wilson? Damon Williams?
Everyone's talking about them at the current moment. Like, we won't talk about them every day. Yeah.
Trust me. When I come on
Thanks
here,
I super chat though.
Yeah, but I tell Joe this all the time, just for everybody. I don't like coming on here and talking about LSU because I got an hour and a half show, 2 hour show that I got to go do and talk about it there. I don't want to do that here. It's not the purpose.
It was because of me. It was take the blame. I wanted to talk about it.
But it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, we can move on. Ty Benefield, mark it down. Mark it down. I'm telling you, this kid can flat out play. All right. Let's move over here. Before we get to picks and game analysis here, Joe, Ty Simpson is announcing that he is going to the NFL draft. What are your thoughts on Simpson leaving?
Couple of things. One of the things that I heard after this announcement came out, I saw a long list of injuries that hadn't really been covered very deeply for Ty Simpson. The kid was so banged up this year, and he took a beating in so many games. And I think that a lot of people need to give him credit for what he exuded in a lot of really difficult spots for his team this season. People are acting like he got benched against Indiana. He had a banged up rib. I believe it was a broken rib. The kid was getting destroyed every single week down the stretch. He's going to go in the first round. There is a reason why he declared. He is going to go in the first round. He is absolutely one of the few options that teams are going to be willing to consider, because in the middle of the year, he had some really good tape. It wasn't consistent. There's been guys with far less consistent tape than him that have gone on in the first round. He's got the arm talent. He's got the football IQ. He's got the instincts. All that stuff translates to a first-round prospect. And if Dante Moore does not declare, this year's quarterback class has one guy, and that's Fernando Mendoza. Ty Simpson's making the right decision. He could end up being a top 5 pick when it's all said and done and this process goes through. He could end up being a team savior, a guy that a franchise thinks that they can build around. And I think for that reason, it's been put out there. A lot of people have kind of been saying, hey, does this end up being a kid who goes to Miami? That he changes his mind last second, like we saw with Cam Ward and like we saw with Carson Beck.
Same with
difference is right. Tennessee's been brought up as well. Tennessee made a little bit less sense, but Miami has done this twice now. Mm-hmm. He is not the same as those two guys. Cam Ward was not a clear first-round pick. He might have snuck into the end of the first round in that year that he was declaring and then decided to go back in. Carson Beck was a day 3 pick before he decided to go back. Ty Simpson loses money theoretically if he's in next year's class that has a loaded group.
What grade did he get? That's the first thought that came to my mind when he declared. It also came
mostly
across
first-round grades from
first-round grades. Okay. Does that mean Dante Moore's not going in? So
I don't think they know.
Well, none of us know. So it gets to a part of, I think that he got really good grade from NFL teams, NFL people saying that he'd probably be a first-round pick. Joe, the dysfunction offensively was not on him. Do I think he's got to get better in some areas? Sure. I think he's got to get better in some areas. But the problem is that he didn't have a run game. His lead wide receiver coming into the season led the SEC in drops in Ryan Williams. He had dysfunction around him. He was hurt. His offensive line sucked. He got beat up. He was playing against a lot of ranked teams, kept getting hit all the time. And finally, against Indiana, enough was enough, and he just didn't go back in. Ironically enough, he's going to have more structure in the NFL potentially than he's going to have with going back to Alabama, because they still have not fixed things along their offensive line. And I don't know if not having more of a dual threat guy that can be more mobile is not more beneficial for both parties. In reference to, hey, man, do you really want to sit back in this pocket and keep getting hit or go to the NFL where there's more structure here? I think Ty Simpson's a really smart player. I think he's a really hard worker. I think he understands defenses really well. He's a son of a coach. I think he's going to do very well in the NFL. You know, I think about, do I think he needs development and time? Do I hope he goes somewhere where he gets drafted and can sit behind somebody for a year? Potentially. I don't know where that currently is, but it feels like what he needs to do and learn and go into it for maybe in year 2 and really do some good things. I think Ty Simpson's maybe, for me, if I had to pick, if I was just a general manager, I'm going a second-round pick. I don't think he's a first-round guy. Maybe he goes there. But the first quarterback taken in the second round might be the rookie of the year. So that's not a shot at him. I just look at him and say, I really wish I could have seen him with a little bit more structure offensively, with a better offensive line and just an average run game. And I think Bama would have been better. I think he would have been better. And I think people around him failed him. I think Ryan Williams and company failed him. So good for him for entering. I think he's going to be a second-round pick when it's all said and done, unless teams start getting desperate, and we'll go from there. It also opens the door for Keelan Russell and Austin Mack to fight this thing out. I guess the question becomes, at the current moment, I'm glad at the current moment. I'm kind of glad that neither one of them have entered the portal here. So maybe they go in here and battle it out. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens with Austin Mack and Keelan Russell now that Ty Simpson has announced for the draft.
That was the second place that my head went. And I got to be honest, I feel like this has a lot more to do with Keelan Russell. I think that Austin Mack looked solid. I think that Austin Mack looked pretty competent stepping in when he had to finish the game when Simpson went down with the injury that he had. But is this a vote of confidence that they think that Keelan Russell is going to play to his potential? Because if anyone's been...
No, let me tell you why. Because they were really pushing for him to come back.
That's true.
They were pushing for him to come back. And so, I think that, when Keelan Russell started saying, hey, man, this dude's coming back, people were like, oh, Tennessee, Miami, LSU's all connected. That wasn't true. LSU
but the thing that I think that Alabama obviously would have loved to have him back. I don't know enough about that situation to speak on it, but I feel like
he got good grades and he left. Let's just be real.
No, I know he got good grades and he left. But if there were rumors about going and getting him for Tennessee and going and getting him for Miami, maybe that is the indicator that they want to move on to Keelan Russell. I mean, we're watching this right now with USC with Hassan Longstreet, where they brought back Maeva and Longstreet wants to play. So it's speculated that he might enter into the portal. And that would be devastating for USC. I'm not saying you rush this process to appease Keelan Russell. And I don't know if Keelan Russell's done enough at this current moment to prove that he's ready to go. But it feels like that there is at least a little bit of a belief that he can end up being special for this team next year.
I agree that he can be. But they're going to battle it out. And it's going to be interesting to see who wins. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Keelan Russell wins it. I don't.
That would screw over Russell, because I think that
he'd be a red-shirted freshman.
How much eligibility does Austin Mack
really
have?
And truthfully, you're screwing over Austin Mack. If you think Keelan Russell's going to win the job, tell Austin Mack so he can hit the portal.
What year did Austin Mack come out? Austin Mack was
24?
He was in the
2025,
2023 class.
Okay,
so that means he's been in college football for
2023, 2024, 2025.
Okay, so he'd have two. Yeah, he'd have 2 more years to start. So if Austin Mack wins the job, Keelan Russell would be probably packing up and leaving, knowing how everybody operates. Maybe.
I think Longstreet needs to stay, and I think Keelan Russell needs to stay. Battle it out. What are you waiting for? Battle it, like, you got time.
Well, but if you go in the spring and you battle it out and you lose, you got to sit there. You just got to sit there. Steve Angeli hopped in the portal and he started balling out.
Yeah. Guess what? Welcome to reality. So what? You sat for 2 years. All the quarterbacks that are winning the Heisman Trophy and are the best quarterbacks coming in are 5th-year guys.
If Austin Mack stays and is the starter for the next 2 seasons,
Keelan Russell won't be there. Keelan Russell won't be there if that happens.
He would end up sitting for 3 years. But to your point about a lot of these guys are 5th-year guys. They started earlier in their careers. They got on the field. They got reps. They played. So that's the only thing I kind of push back on that. I think
play early. I mean, he played midway through his career, but he didn't play early.
Who'd you say?
Mendoza. He didn't play early. He sat 2 years and then came midway through. Did he not?
No, he
didn't start as a true freshman. No, he didn't.
Wait.
He didn't start as a redshirt freshman.
He is a redshirt junior at the current moment.
So
okay, well, he's
been there for 4 years. He's been a starter for 2 years officially. At Cal
No,
and that,
he's been a starter for 2 years, and he played significant time in his first season in 2023. He played
because
more
of
than
an
half the
injury.
season. He played 9 games.
Because of an injury, and then got redshirted. Hold on.
I don't know.
Hold on. Played year 1, came back redshirted. Did he not?
No, I'm talking about Mendoza.
Right.
I don't know. He played 2023, 2024.
That means there's a season that he didn't play.
Yeah, but that means he redshirted his first season.
All right.
That's fine. That's fine. But I'm saying typically a lot of these guys get on the field as redshirt freshmen, and then they play multiple seasons.
He didn't win the job in year 2. Because of an injury, he comes in. Then he starts for a year and then starts for another year. Then he wins the Heisman. 4th and 5th year guys. I mean, some of these kids got to do the Dante Moore situation. You got to Dante Moore left, and then he sat.
But that's my point. Is he left? He didn't just stay. He left.
Sure, but at the same time, like some of these kids got to sit. I mean, if you're going to sit here and battle it out, battle it out.
I think that obviously they will. I think that they obviously. I don't even know what we're really arguing right now, but I want. Okay, what I'm trying to get at here, or what I would like to get at here, I want to see Keelan Russell start because I think Keelan Russell has a higher upside as a player. Maybe that there could be a couple of bumps at the beginning of the year. I don't know if their schedule is off the top of my head. I'm going to pull it up in a quick second at the start of the season. But I think that there's more upside with starting Keelan Russell and him starting for the next 3 seasons than there is with turning to Austin Mack. Losing a guy who is as highly recruited as Keelan Russell, I think it would really suck for Kalen DeBoer.
Well, then play him. But tell Austin Mack you're going to do it.
The beginning of their season, by the way, is ECU, at Kentucky, Florida State, South Carolina, and at Mississippi State. Their first really tough game is Georgia at home, October 10th. So you start Russell. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got 5 games to get it figured out.
Don't look past that Florida State game.
They can lose in Oklahoma or Florida State at home. That ain't happening.
Yeah, you say that. You say that. You never know. All right, let's move on here. Let's get to some game picks and a little bit of an analysis. So we got some playoff games the next 2 days, Joe. Miami versus Ole Miss in the Fiesta Bowl. Game will be tomorrow. Miami is favored with our good friends over at FanDuel at 3.5. What are your thoughts moving into Ole Miss versus Miami as you pick this game now?
Yeah, I'm taking Miami minus 3.5 on FanDuel. Blake, I think that this should be pretty simple. A lot of times that when we have these magical teams that are the fun team that everybody's excited about, they're the big story, they defy the odds. A lot of those teams typically end up hitting a wall at some point. Unless you are a juggernaut, like in a 2019 LSU, like all these teams that have been exciting to watch, but also really talented at every single position group, you end up meeting your match at a certain point. Happened with TCU in 2023. It happened with Washington, or 2022, 2023 with Washington. I think that this Ole Miss team reminds me a lot of those teams where you have a quarterback and an offense with a skill position group that is able to outplay your weaknesses. But when you face a team that will accentuate those weaknesses, how do you really perform? Ultimately, Trinidad Chambliss is probably going to defy any expectation that I have because he's continually done it. But when you have a massive difference in offensive line and defensive line play between these two teams, I have to go with the team with the advantage on both sides of the ball. And I have stupidly ignored that for Miami for back-to-back games. I said it all at the beginning of the year. They've finally gotten back to it. I think that you not only have an offensive line that is going to be able to pave lanes against the 132nd ranked team in the country in EPA per rush allowed, but you also have Akeem Mesidor and Ruben Bain who did a good job of containing Marcel Reed, who's equally as elusive as Trinidad Chambliss. And one thing that's not getting talked about a lot with this, the linebacker room for Miami is really good. And I think that they're going to be able to spy Chambliss effectively without having to send ridiculous heat. So I'm sticking with Miami here at 3.5. This game is going to be won in the trenches.
I'm going to double down on what I said the other day. Actually, I'm not going to double down. I'm going to just say exactly what I said the other day. I think people need to realize how good Trinidad Chambliss actually is. That's number one. And I like, Joe, you bring up that he's defied every odd. He literally has. He just obliterated Georgia twice. Obliterated them through the air, through the ground. They have a very physical run game. It's going to be interesting to see how they do with Kawan Lacey in that run game versus a very good front in Miami. This comes down to, for me, can Ole Miss hang on enough that they wear this front seven down with tempo? Joe, I'm going to tell you, everybody's got a plan until you rope-a-dope them along the ropes and you go full Muhammad Ali and you're exhausted and they're not, and they start punching you in the mouth. That is how they're beating the shit out of everybody. You'll want to know how they're scoring 35 points a game versus ranked opponents because they stick around, and they keep running tempo. And guys like, I'm just throwing this out there, Ruben Bain, defensive linemen, get exhausted, and there's not enough rotational pieces, and they're able to come back and bop you in the mouth, and there's nothing that you can do about it. Nothing. They're going to have to pick their spots. Miami must pick their spots. They got Ruben Bain, Mesidor, Lightfoot, and I'm going to throw in Keontae Scott. We've had this discussion. I shouldn't have to go through this again. They're going to have to pick their spots. When to get after Chambliss and when not to. And, Joe, I don't know if there's a better quarterback today, right now in college football, that is better than reading pressure and eluding pressure. My question is not, can Miami, from an athletic standpoint and a talent standpoint, go into Tempe, Arizona, and physically dominate? I think that they can. I think that's a strong possibility. But I just seen teams with great defensive lines get absolutely abused when teams stick around, run tempo, they're exhausted, and they can't find a way to slow them down in the fourth quarter. Miami better hold on to that football. The best defense is your offense and holding on to that football. You got to hold on to it. You got to pound that rock against a run game in Ole Miss that had shown, not of late, but has shown weaknesses. I thought Nate Frazier going out of the game for Georgia literally lost them the football game. He was gashing them, and Fletcher and the boys can absolutely dominate you in the run game. Miami's got to hold on to the ball, hold on to that ball, hold on to that football for them to win. I have said this since the Georgia game on, not this past one, but the first one. I just refuse to say that Trinidad Chambliss can't do it all because he's defying odds right now. Bain, Mesidor, and Lightfoot are going to have to find a way to get him down on the ground. Teams have not been able to do it. You have the best defensive line versus a quarterback who, Joe, in my humble opinion, is playing the best quarterback in college football right now. In my opinion, just best right now. Can they get after him? But I think they got to hold on to the football. I think they will. Ole Miss has not been able to stop teams from running the football effectively enough, and I think that is what's going to give Miami the advantage. I will say this too. Carson Beck's been playing clean. Does that ever change? Does he get in his own head? I'm going to do something Georgia couldn't do. He's got to continue to play clean football, and I'm going to tell you this now. Ole Miss does not have the depth defensively. You can wear them down too. If you wear them down, you're gonna be fine. I'm gonna lean with power instead of finesse in this one. But Joe, I got to tell you, Chambliss and tempo very much scare me from Miami in this one.
Yeah, I think, by the way, you brought up the lack of depth for Ole Miss. I mean, that was something that they brought up on the broadcast when they played Georgia, and you saw, Xavier Harris was on the ground like every other play, and he was getting helped up every single time, and they all looked pretty gassed. I do think that like the biggest part here with why I like Miami the most is that I do really think that they control the pace of the game. But at the end of the day, as you mentioned here, I am generally afraid to bet against Trinidad Chambliss. Every piece of logic dictates that you're supposed to go with Miami. But Chambliss has been this guy that has found ways to defy those odds constantly. And as you've mentioned here, if they get 2 big splash plays and they're down by 2 scores, Miami is, I feel
It's
a little
over.
bit off. They're just not a team that scores that quickly. But I'm sticking with Miami. I think, again, this game is won in the trenches. The team that has this large advantage on both sides of the ball is notable.
It very much is. I just think that Miami is going to be able to hold on to the football. And that's what's ultimately going to beat Ole Miss. Dude, I'm telling you, you can't. Trinidad is a different dude, man. He's a different beast. So we'll see. This defense, this offensive line's got to win them the football game. Miami got to win them the football game. Here's another question I have. It was announced today that George McDonald, the wide receivers coach, along with Joe Cox, who's the co-offensive coordinator, will not be in attendance for this game. They have stayed at LSU. Any thoughts on those coaches not being there, being any impact?
Yeah, I don't know how distracting that ends up being. I feel like that could end up being a huge distraction, but at the same time, we talked about it possibly being a distraction last round, and it didn't necessarily affect them. So,
well, all of those guys were there. I mean, all of those guys were there. I mean, so I guess we'll see. All right. Joe, last game before we get out of here, Indiana versus Oregon. Your thoughts on how this one's going to go down and your game pick here?
I've been grappling with this one all week, and I've been coming back to this belief that I think that Indiana makes the most sense, but it's not who I'm going with.
Okay.
Indiana has played the cleanest football in the moments that it's mattered the most, and they have a quarterback who steps up in those moments. I think that the way that the last time that they played, and we've seen in their biggest wins, that they have limited opposing teams' rushing attacks could translate to this game. Absolutely could. And when Oregon doesn't run the ball well, they have issues throwing the ball as well. We've seen Dante Moore make some bad mistakes that has hurt their offense in spurts in these situations. But I just come away thinking that it feels just off for me to assume that Oregon is going to lose to Indiana twice this season. I do not think that the margins between these two teams is significant. I think both these teams are very similar. They're both equally talented. The last time that they won, it came down to Dante Moore making 2 critical errors and them not being able to get the ground game going. I'm going to go with Oregon to cover at +3.5. I don't know if they outright win this. I feel like that they could, but I feel like Oregon can keep this thing tight.
You mean you're taking Indiana to cover?
No, I'm taking Oregon to cover +3.5.
Oh, okay. So you think it's
3.5?
You think it's a 3-point game?
Yeah, a 3-point game or Oregon wins. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yes.
Every time I picked against Indiana, they've won. Every time. Except last year. It's tough to beat a good team twice, Joe. I think that Oregon's got to stack the box and take the run game away from Mendoza. I'm going to try to make Mendoza throw the ball 35 times to beat me. I'm going all out. If Becker, if Surratt, if Cooper get on me and they win those battles, so be it. So be it. I mean, what else are you going to take away? Are you going to back out? Are you not going to not put guys in the box? It's easy to take guys and put guys in the box. It's what led you to the pick 6 on Mendoza the first time. Indiana fans are going to get mad at me because I'm going to pick them to win. I'm with you. I'm going to pick them to win. I'm not going to pick them to cover. Something in my gut just says that, look, man, we've just seen teams that when they play a team for a second time, they lose. I don't know how to feel with that one. I look at Indiana as a team that a lot of people think is invincible. I don't think they're invincible. I think if you take the run away from him, I think you make Mendoza throw the ball 35 times. I think he can be mistake prone. Where we're not going to get in that argument again. But I'm going to take Indiana to win. But man, I just think Oregon has a chance to do the unthinkable here, and I think there's a lot of me that thinks that they can do it, Joe. I really do. I don't know what it is. I think they're going to learn from their mistakes. I think that young secondary is getting good, but the thing that worries me with Oregon here is, well, Oregon doesn't have explosivity on the outside, and I don't know if they got in a shootout how that's going to work. I mean, this got to be a 24-21 type game for them to win it, because if Indiana gets to 30 again, they're not winning this football game.
Right. That's why I really ultimately think that this game is going to come down to like a field goal. I could totally see this thing being tied. If Indiana wins it, Mendoza marches down and kicks, sets them up to kick a game-winning field goal, something along those lines. The margins are close for these two teams. This is not a matchup that anyone should believe that there is some significant edge. Both teams are really similar. Both teams each have advantages on the other. I don't feel certain on who wins, but seeing Ole Miss win the way that they did against Georgia after losing to them the first time, it makes me feel like that they're Oregon's due. It feels like Oregon is due. Now, they haven't been super smooth at times, but I feel like they're due to get this win, to get back on Indiana and to be able to move on to the national championship.
We shall see. Well, I'm going to take Indiana to win. They're going to hate me for it. There's a lot of me that feels like Oregon can pull this off. I think it's going to be a close game. All right. Let's get to some super chats here. Bug says, Blake says it's okay for LSU. All a man has is his word. Buck, with all due respect, if I offered you $150,000 a year and you were making $50,000 a year, you're coming to work for Ruffino and Joe Show. Word, don't you talk about all you have is your word. Fuck that. I'm sorry. But Joe, let me tell you what pisses me off. What pisses me off is people saying a guy gets an offer that's bigger than the one that he currently has and them taking that offer.
This is why these kids need to stop signing at the beginning of the signing period. They need to wait till the signing period ends. They just need to wait.
Yeah, I mean,
to sign the contract.
And I got to be real. Have you talked? I know you've talked to some. Have you talked to a lot of these agents? And I'm saying that to the people listening. No, y'all haven't. They're fucking dumb. They're dumb.
Yep.
There's one agency, Joe, by the way, that's got 1,200 clients in the portal. Of the 4,000 that's in the portal, you know why On3 and 247 are tagging all of them in it? For number one, the kids, and so they get information. And number two, how do they make their money?
Yeah.
How do they make their money? Come on, man. All he has is his word. Get out of here. Abe, with a $5 super chat, says, how do you know next year's class will be great? Remember, Klubnik, Nussmeier were supposed to see to be locks. Simpson should stay one more money and improve.
Is that Ben McAdoo as his profile picture? You are a sicko. Jesus. Here's the thing. This year's class at the beginning of the year, nobody was a lock. The way that it was talked about, if you were like really embedded in the draft coverage, it was, here's a group of 5-6 guys that all have first round potential but need to hit. And almost none of them hit. None of them. The two guys outside of Mendoza who was already in the mix, the two guys that are now in the mix were Simpson and were Dante Moore, because they had really good years, but nobody was talking about them because they hadn't played. This upcoming draft is different, though, because you actually had Arch play at a high level. Arch is going to get a lot of attention, even if he takes a step backward and he maybe struggles a little bit. There's also Lenore Sellers. There's also DJ Lagway. There's also Dylan Raiola if those guys end up playing better. Ty Simpson could have declared him in the 6th quarterback off the board. Which, how much that he probably still goes in the 1st round, but you could be the 2nd or 3rd quarterback selected if a team likes you enough and is desperate enough. He got a lot of good feedback. It's not like he didn't get 1st round feedback.
I agree with you. Jason sends a $20 super chat. Says Damon Williams is a garbage kid for announcing going into the portal when he knew all the coaches and many players were at a celebration for Mia Hamnet. He can't say that he didn't know because everyone at UW knew. Here's the truth. 10 days ago, I have a TikTok that's up on AYS about DeMond Williams and there being interest from other teams. So you mean that Blake Ruffino knew and that I had a long segment about it and that Washington didn't know? Newsflash. When Pete Nakos reported it, who did he instantly say officials that he talked to? It was Washington. Did they make the kid look bad?
Well, yeah, this is I didn't know about this whole situation with there being a funeral that he skipped. It's kind of slimy if not on his part, but like if they're trying to frame it like he skipped it to look, just as bad as it sounds, it's also easy to use something like that to make the kid look like a piece of shit. Everybody wants him to be an enemy. Everybody wants Lane Kiffin to be an enemy. It's just how this whole process works.
You're mad that I didn't go to a memorial service for someone that I did not know and someone leaked that I was going into the portal or announcing I wanted to go into the portal. They knew. If I knew, they knew. T on YouTube with a $5 super chat says DJ Lagway to UW. Smoke catching fire as Jed's Shanahan tree system is best for DJ's NFL development, while DJ coming to UW would save Jed's job.
I think that Lagway would be a perfect fit too in that system. And to that point, it does have a lot of pro concepts that you could be that would translate. So I'm excited to see what happens with Lagway if that ends up who they're getting.
T also says, Blake, you're so off on this DeMond stuff. I'm literally here in the building at UW every day. No, you're not. What's your hold on?
How do we know that?
What's your real name? Give me the phone number to your office, and I will call you tomorrow. I'm going to sit here. Send the super chat because it's public knowledge of who you would be and what building you would be in and what your office number would be in. This is not my first rodeo. I've been doing this since 2017. You can give me that. So you want to play games? You're not in the building. You're sending super chats to a people that do a show and you say that you're in the building, then you know what you're doing? You're violating 4 NCAA bylaws. Hold on. Thank you. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go to the NCAA and turn you in. What's your name? Send me your contact number. It's not my first rodeo.
And again, to this point, this has been something, the DeMond Williams thing has been something that's been rumored. So this isn't like
Joe, we have a whole segment up from 10 days ago. How did I know and then them not know?
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you for your money, and thank you for violating NCAA bylaws. With that, y'all have a good night.